Talofa lava, this is Pacific Waves from RNZ Pacific. I'm Susana Suisuki. Coming up.
Then all the people who've been infected with type 1 before, who've been protected against getting type 1 again, they could all get type 2.
Dengue fever cases surge in the Pacific. Also,
it would have been sort of like an excellent situation for us here. It's not only about the government, but it's about our people.
Cook Islands Prime Minister to blame for fallout with New Zealand, and final checks are underway ahead of Samoa's election. Dengue fever cases have increased significantly across the Pacific this year, with outbreaks in Fiji, Samoa, Tonga, American Samoa, Cook Islands, French Polynesia, Kiribati, Nauru and Tuvalu. So far, there have been over 12,000 confirmed cases and 8 deaths reported in the region. Joining me to talk about dengue fever is Dr. Mark Jacobs, the World Health Organization representative to the South Pacific, and Tangaloa Dr. Robert Thompson, Samoa's Acting Director General Health. So, Dr. Jacobs, I just want to turn my attention to you first. Can you take us through the numbers for the region? I understand that the WHO data shows cases are at their highest since 2016.
Yeah, so we've been seeing a gradual increase in dengue in the Pacific for at least the last couple of decades. But looking at the last 10 years, what we tend to see is peaks in some years and then lower levels in other years. Now, this year, so far, we're up to more than 18,000 suspected cases of dengue in the Pacific so far this year. So that's the biggest number that we've had certainly in the last 10 years. And we've also, included in that, well, there's a bit of overlap. We've had just over 12,000 laboratory confirmed cases of dengue. So it's there's a lot of dengue in many Pacific countries this year.
Yeah, what would you put that down to? Why are we seeing a surge of these cases in recent times?
Well, there's some different factors that affect the risk of there being dengue outbreaks. The first thing to say is that for quite a few of the Pacific countries, dengue is not there all the time. So dengue, the virus that causes dengue fever, basically lives in people and it lives in mosquitoes. And so for a lot of particularly the smaller Pacific countries, they haven't got enough people there for the virus to keep on circulating all the time. And so what tends to happen in those sort of Pacific countries is if there's an outbreak somewhere else in the Pacific or somewhere where there's people moving to and from, someone might come into that country from another country. They've already been infected in the other country, and so they bring the virus back into the country again. So we see that. But also, there's factors like climate change and the change of weather across the Pacific that can also increase risk. The other thing that people might not be aware of around dengue and dengue risk is that it's actually most common in urban settings and sort of semi-urban settings, so towns and villages where there's quite a few people living. So the mosquito is very comfortable living in and around people's houses. It's not like one of these other mosquitoes where you're more likely to get exposed to it if you go out into the forest or something like that. This mosquito and this virus mainly spreads in towns and larger villages. So I guess as the urban populations in a number of the Pacific countries increase, people move from the outer islands into the main island and the capital, for instance, then that could also increase the number of people who are at risk of getting dengue.
Are there different strains of dengue fever?
So there's 4 main types of dengue virus. They're all quite closely related. The important thing about that, though, is that if you've been infected with one of these strains, and the strains have got the imaginative names of type 1, type 2, type 3 and type 4. So say if you've been infected in the past with type 1 dengue, then you're unlikely to get that sort of dengue again. But if you get exposed, if a different strain of the dengue virus comes into the country some years later, so dengue type 2, for instance, then all the people who've been infected with type 1 before, who've been protected against getting type 1 again, they could all get type 2. And so that's the other thing that can trigger big outbreaks is if there's a different serotype, a different type of the virus coming in. Now, that's actually also important because if if somebody's had dengue more than once, so in other words, if they've had it with a couple of the different strains, a few years apart, they're the people who are most likely to get really, really severely ill with dengue. And so we see more of the severe dengue, more of the complications of dengue in those people.
So talk us through the responses or the assistance that the WHO are providing to specific countries that are seeing this surge of cases.
Well, the sort of support that we've been providing, and of course it varies from country to country, because we don't sort of want to impose our support on every country and with the same model. So we speak to the countries and see what they need. But the support starts in advance of the outbreak starting. So we work quite a bit with the countries around strengthening their surveillance system, so their systems to detect possible outbreaks and possible cases. We provide support in terms of what we call vector control, so help with how to manage the mosquito numbers, those sorts of things. But then once an outbreak is really getting underway, and so this year, a lot of our support, we provide a lot of technical advice, and so that might be around managing cases, which is actually really important because good quality care for somebody with dengue makes it much less likely that somebody's going to die from dengue. So we provide quite a lot of that sort of advice around communicating to communities, because there's a lot that people in the communities can themselves do to reduce their risk and the risk to their families. And we also are doing, in a number of the countries, we've been trying to better link the surveillance system, so the data system for the human cases, with the weather data. And so the idea of that is that down the track, we'll get better and better at potentially predicting when the next big peak is going to happen. And then there can be a big effort in the countries about on controlling the mosquitoes in advance of the outbreak happening. The other area that we've been supporting during the outbreak is helping with key supplies. So some of the countries have needed, for instance, more dengue rapid tests that they can use to test people who might have dengue. So we've been helping a bit with that too.
So the surveillance system, is that a new initiative?
No, it's been going on for quite a long time. It's part of the broader Pacific surveillance system, which is called PPHSN, that SPC and WHO work together in supporting countries on. But really, it's looking at two main types of surveillance. One is what's coming out of the laboratory testing, and there's been lots of strengthening of laboratory systems through the Pacific, particularly in the last 5 years. And a lot of the strengthening happened because of the additional funding that was available during the COVID pandemic. And so there's a lot more capacity in the laboratories in a lot of the countries now that was able to be used for COVID testing, but now can be used for dengue testing. So that there's been a lot of that sort of strengthening and that surveillance. The other surveillance is a thing called syndromic surveillance, which is basically looking out for the sort of symptoms that we might see. So there's a few different sort of groups of how sick people look, which we have a different surveillance system for. So there's one that basically is looking out for people who might have dengue based on the symptoms without even needing a test. So we're monitoring that as well. And that's also, the continuing strengthening of those sorts of systems, of course, means we're getting more data, more information out of those surveillance systems. So that's probably also playing a bit of a part in the gradual increase in the number of cases through the Pacific over the last 10 years or more. But it's not the main reason. The main reason is there is a lot of dengue around this year.
Thank you, Dr. Jacobs. If I can bring you in, Tangaloa, what's the situation in Samoa right now? How many cases are there currently? The last time I checked, there was around 935. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Currently, as to the question, thank you. Our latest update that went out on Friday last week, which shows that on the 13th of July, we have a total of 1,276 laboratory confirmed dengue cases in country. and it's showing that, and that's about 331 new laboratory confirmed. So for the past 3 weeks, excluding this week, we've seen an increase of about 100 cases, confirmed cases per week. So that's the laboratory confirmed. Dr. Jacobs touched on the syndromic surveillance aspects of it. So one of the things that we do track in relation to dengue as part of the syndromic surveillance is what is referred as a dengue-like illness, keeping in mind that we only have laboratory facilities here at the main hospital and to a civvy, but all these data are collected from our different hospital. So it gives a rough idea of the situation of where dengue is if you look at both the numbers of DLI as well as the numbers that are being confirmed by the laboratory. Thank you.
How are health services in Samoa coping?
Well, so far we are coping. The workload over the past 2 weeks have slowly doubled, kind of like starting to triple now, especially here at the main hospital in Apia. And so we are moving now to institute a contingency plan where we are now looking at opening our outpatient services 24 hours. Usually our outpatient services closes at around 12 midnight and then start again at 8 a.m. So now we're looking at opening it 24/7 to cater for the high number of cases that are coming in both during daytime and also after hours in that sense. Our biggest challenge at the moment in terms of cases is the pediatric age group. Children below 15 years of age appears to be the ones that are mostly affected. And so to cater for that, we have also opened up the ward that we built for the Chokum event last year, which has a bed capacity of around 20 beds. So we have opened that ward up now to cater for the surplus of children that needs admission into the pediatric ward.
Do you have enough staff to cater to these high number of cases in Samoa, particularly the children under 15?
Yeah, at this stage, we are okay with the number of staff, especially the nursing staff. It's our medical numbers that it's a bit of a challenge at the moment, given that a lot of them are sick or going for further studies. But the numbers that we have at the moment, believe is sufficient because now we have each health facility in the rural areas has a medical officer, so that will cater for all the rural facilities. And we have posted additional staffs to Civi and Savai. So our front line here is so far we are managing with the numbers at this stage. So so at this stage we are managing.
Cool. Local media reported last week a child with dengue had died. What's been the response from the government? I understand that the Education Ministry had closed schools as a way of preventing spread.
Yeah. Last week we had our second dengue fatality, and it's an 8-year-old female that passed away due to severe dengue on Sunday night last week. And so we've written to the Ministry of Education to consider extending the school holiday while the primary schools were still in holiday last week, and they have responded positively. And also the other ministry, there's the DMO, the Disaster Management Office, through the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment, are now calling a disaster advisory committee meeting for tomorrow to discuss different sector plans as we move into the current outbreak for the dengue.
Yeah, can you
So
talk
we
more
will be
about this
discussing that tomorrow.
plan?
Well, the main our main focus right now is around community engagement, mainly focusing on community engagement and pushing for a mass cleanup campaign, and that's mainly focusing on breeding sites, destroying breeding sites for mosquitoes and that. So that's a mass campaign that we're working on. At the same time, we are empowering communities to recognize the danger signs of dengue that Dr. Jacob also alluded to in his comments and that. In addition to that, we are prioritizing at this stage insecticide spraying for schools and special sites like the Victim Support, the Mapui Whangalele, the Fia Malamalama School, and some of like the National University of Samoa and USB. So we'll probably be focusing on insect spraying around those areas, but we will be working with other sectors in ensuring that they take the lead in their own respective sectors in responding to the dengue outbreak.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. That's the end of our tala noa, but is there anything else that you'd like to share?
Yes, one thing that's worthwhile mentioning is that dengue is becoming more and more common right around the world. It's not something that's unique to the Pacific or restricted to the Pacific. It's estimated that about half the world's population is exposed to dengue where they live, and so I think for anybody, it's a good thing to be aware of. You know, if people are planning, even if you're not living in a country that has dengue or an area that has dengue. If you're thinking about traveling to another part of the world, then it's good to know about that, because there's some very basic, simple precautions that can be taken to greatly reduce your risk.
Tangaloa?
No, I think Dr. Jacob has touched base on the basic precautions that people can take, especially traveling around the globe. And it's mainly around ensuring that you wear proper clothing and use of insect repellents if you going around and about in communities and things like that.
The leader of the United Party in the Cook Islands is blaming his Prime Minister for New Zealand's Foreign Minister and Prime Minister not attending constitutional celebrations. The 4th of August marks 60 years of the Cook Islands being in free association with New Zealand. Governor-General Dame Cindy Kiro will represent New Zealand at the event. Of late, the two countries' relationship has been rocky, largely stemming from controversial deals signed between China and the Cook Islands in February. Caleb Fotheringham asked Te Ariki Heather what he thought of the lack of senior government officials at the significant event.
It's really up to our Prime Minister. I've always said and asked that they should apologise. And then, we love to have the Prime Minister and also Winston Peters in this country of our long relationship with RNZ.
So you think the problem's to do with Cook Islands Prime Minister, not with New Zealand's Prime Minister and Foreign Minister?
Yes, it's our Prime Minister.
Do you think that New Zealand should have sent their Prime Minister and Foreign Minister anyway, and that could have been a good opportunity to clear the air?
Well, not really. Our Prime Minister has made the fault. then they should be the ones sort of a simple apologies would be well accepted, I believe, with New Zealand. So it's not the case that New Zealand is at fault. It's really our Prime Minister is at fault.
New Zealand's obviously sending its Governor-General over, but as I said before, not the Prime Minister and Foreign Minister. Do you think that's a snub that New Zealand's not sending the Prime Minister and Foreign Minister?
I think the role the Governor-General for New Zealand is highly respected by us here. But this is a government to government, and by not the Prime Minister and, of course, a Deputy Prime Minister not attending. And I don't think that shows a good relationship from our Prime Minister. So it's not really anybody else or the officials or the people of this country. We highly respect that relationship. And this 60th should have been, as a 60th celebration, we should have respected the long relationship we have with New Zealand. And I have no arguments against the Prime Minister, and of course Winston Bill is not attending.
Do you think the celebrations at Te Maivanui will be dampened a little bit with the ongoing situation with New Zealand and that relationship not being as strong as it has been in the past?
Has dampened. And for me, it's not a real celebration. Yes, we're celebrating our 60 years, but that means that we've had that long relationship. It would have been sort of like an excellent situation for us here. And that celebrating the 60 years, is of course our relationship. It's not only about the government, but it's about our people as well.
Meanwhile, Democratic Party leader Tina Brown says the absence of top government officials sends a clear message. The two nations' relationship has not been restored.
I am disappointed because this is an important celebration for us and New Zealand. We've walked together through the 60 years. Number two, we are related in the sense that the waka is left from the Cook Islands.
She says their absence will be noticed, but people will celebrate anyway.
Cook Islanders are great with celebrations, and the people will celebrate, even though the top level people are still trying to iron out the diplomatic relationship.
Cook Islands Prime Minister Mark Brown says his government is honoured to have the Governor-General representing New Zealand. With just weeks to go before Samoa heads to the polls, the Electoral Commissioner says final checks on the voter roll are underway, with over 100,000 people registered to vote. Tolia for Tuia Filolo Alexander Stanley spoke with our Samoa Affairs reporter, Grace Viva'ai.
Have you and your team found that there is a loophole where Samoan citizens, for example, living here in New Zealand or overseas, have come to Samoa and registered as a Samoan citizen, or do you have those stats or numbers from your current findings?
Yeah, we do believe there are quite a few, given that we had these Efakasa meeting as well as the Methodist meeting. There's a lot of people who came overseas during the Falablabe as well, and they registered face-to-face with during our registration process. We can't get that number. The only number we can give you is the number of those who applied online and came over and did their biometrics.
In terms of voter fraud allegations, there's been a lot of public interest around the recent voter fraud allegations. Can you walk us through what triggered these allegations, and would they be charged or investigated?
There's 4 fraud voters who tried to register using another person's birth certificate. The 4 cases have been investigated. The 2 have been completed and they've been charged in the court of law. The other 2 is yet to be completed and will go through the same process.
And so after the investigations have been done, will they be allowed to vote?
Well, the court cases will be completed on the 15th of August. All election matters will be finalized by the court. So if they are found guilty their names will be removed.
And can you just walk us through again, I know you've sent me the court order. For those who don't really understand the process of the objection and challenge processes.
There are 2 levels. On the top is a voter objection. So far, by close of voter objection, we have received only 1 voter objection from Whalearupu. For the candidate objections, by close of 4 p.m. on Friday last week, we have been served with 11 objections. It's mainly about their monotanga. The objections focus really on the monotanga, the eligibility criteria for monotanga. Under the law, you have to do your monotanga every 3 years, a consecutive 3 years. So it's every 3 years.
And I believe some of those challenges are against the Office of the Electoral Commission. Is that because of the decisions made from you and your office for those candidates to run?
Yeah. As you are aware, Grace, all the statutory declarations are completed in front of their lawyers before it comes to the Office of the Commission.
Mm.
So our job is just to check if all the boxes have been ticked and filled in correctly, and that's where we approve it. The person to be eligible to be contest the election. But then again, that's the process that goes to the court, and their lawyers will also represent each candidate as well as their matais who signed it, and that will be determined by the court if it's legitimate.
Yes, yeah. What measures are in place to ensure a secure and fair election, including preventing voter intimidation and ensuring transparency during the voting count?
Well, we've had a lot of programs. We have a communication team, and I'm also in it, and we've had a lot of programs locally advising candidates, advising villages, advising matais regarding the law. The law is quite clear. There's no undue influence. There's no bribery. There's no cheating. The voter has to come and do his own vote and go back home. There's no transporting of voters and all that stuff. So we've been doing a lot of talk on radio in that regard.
Would you say that this is Samoa's biggest election in terms of candidacy or candidates, or have there been other years previously where we've had more candidates? Or is this the biggest year?
Yeah, exactly. By close of the general election in 2021 was 187 candidates. One candidate has withdrawn so far, so we've got 190 now.
How are you feeling? After the elections, it's another phase of the election where we go through the petitions.
Yeah, we are all prepared for that. Definitely, there will be challenges after the election as well, but we are all prepared for that. But we just hope that our election will be smooth, the general elections. And hopefully there won't be as much petitions after that as well.
A Fijian political commentator says politics in the country is in disarray and the time is ripe for new blood. Professor Stephen Ratuva says the investigation into the sacked head of the anti-corruption agency has overshadowed the political landscape. Margot Staunton asked Professor Ratuva to explain.
The Commission of Inquiry has thrown a bombshell right in the center of the Fijian politics. So things are very unpredictable. Things are in a state of flux. And people who are not part of that imploding center are probably conspiring as to how they can maneuver their way in, given what's going to be available for them. So that's probably what people are thinking. Some are saying maybe we'll try and get Rokolui, into one of those leadership positions. But certainly one of the things which has emerged in the last few months when the whole controversy came to the fore was the lack of good leadership and honest and ethical leadership in Fiji. So people are probably looking at that as a reason for getting in new people into the political space. Yeah, Rokolui is probably one of those they're thinking about. Not only Raktivita, but other smart, young, and honest Fijian leaders. It's the opportunity to be able to come in and put their hands up because now the current lot of leaders have a lot to answer to. I mean, in terms of Raktivita, it might be a good opportunity for him, and whether he's actually willing to be part of the political space, I'm not exactly sure. He probably doesn't want what's happening to tarnish his image because it's unsettled. So he's probably thinking that it's probably not the right time for him.
What do you think he could possibly offer as a leader?
He probably brings with him the mana of his father, was very highly respected. He may not have the same background as his father in terms of the mana he's been able to generate over the years, his qualifications and his experience and all those. But it's certainly, as the name of the brand, the mana brand, that he can use effectively in politics, and people will respect that. And of course, we need people who are honest, people who are humble. He seems to have that. Interestingly, what people are not looking at is the fact that the Commission of Inquiries has overshadowed a lot of other processes in place. In fact, the political system in Fiji is overloaded now. I said in one of the public lectures I gave. Now you have a Commission of Inquiry coming out with this report, which is quite damning. And then you have the Truth and Reconciliation Commission taking place at the same time, but nobody knows that they exist because of this. And it should be at the center of the national agenda. And also, they're trying to reform the Constitution, to change the Constitution. So that's a big issue as well. And then you have the issues of drugs, which is huge, and layers of these issues. And then the moment, because the Commission of Inquiry has so much juicy stuff in it for the media, and who's who in the list is also who is who in government and in the judiciary. So that's why it has caught the attention of everybody.
The High Court in Suva has granted former Anti-Corruption Office Chief Barbara Malimali leave to challenge the government's decision to remove her from the role. She saw a judicial review of the powers of the President, Ratu Nengama Lalambalavu, in terminating her employment based on the advice of Prime Minister Sitiveni Rabuka. The case has been adjourned to July 28th. That's Pacific Waves for today. For all episodes, head over to rnz.co.nz/Pacific. We're also on Spotify, Apple and iHeartRadio. From myself and the RNZ Pacific team, tō whā soifua.